Noticing the time and feeling my pangs of hunger, I ordered a pizza for two. I would keep Greg's half warm until he came home. It arrived a half hour later. Grabbing a beer, I turned on the television and watched CNN as I ate. Nothing was really new in the world. I finished 3 pieces, my hunger sated. I cleaned up my small mess and went to work on one of my projects. Time passed. My mind was active but my body was aching for sleep. I gave in. I awoke early the next morning to find Greg asleep beside me. Quietly slipping out of bed, I made coffee and thought about yesterday and what to do today. Beep. The coffee was ready. After pouring a cup, I continued my contemplation of the future. The last thing I had wanted to do was leave her. My dream had actually come true. I had made it with my perfect female and it was everything I had imagined and more. She was incredible, in so many ways. After years of just glimpses through shades and talking with her about engineering-related things, I held her, kissed her. Over and over again, I was reliving small vignettes of our all too brief time together. I slept fitfully that night, never able to completely clear my mind. Thoughts of what had happened, and what the future might hold. I was up early the next day, impatient to see her again. Would she call me? Was I really more than just a one-day wonder? I dialed part of her number many times but always stopped short. Greg was still home. I knew I was way too worked up about it. Finally I went for a run, a long run. I was gone for well over an hour, splitting my time between flat-out running, jogging and walking. It did focus my mind and worked off some of my nervous energy. When I returned my mind was clear, my edginess gone. I went to my room to wait, listening to my iPod to occupy my time. My mom knocked and stuck her head in. Dad and I are leaving for work. See ya for dinner, brats on the grill. Put the potatoes in the oven if you remember or I will just nuke them. Don't work out too hard today. Okay Mom, thanks. See ya tonight. Don't work out too hard I thought. My hard work would hopefully consist of hours spent with Kristen. As I was on my second cup of coffee, Greg came into the kitchen carrying his usual travel bag. You were asleep and I didn't want to disturb you last night. I have to go Philly for a couple days. Be back Thursday, hopefully for dinner. No problem babe, I have plenty of work to keep me busy. Have to keep my clients happy. He grabbed one of the to-go cups we keep handy, poured himself a cup and snapped the lid on. Okay Chris, don't work too hard, he said with a grin, as he leaned down and kissed me on the forehead. Then he was out the door, into his car, and gone. There was no doubt that I wanted to see Jeff again. He had brought long dormant parts of me to life and I was not about to revert back to my previous semi-celibate state. The question was how to handle it. What did he think of me and what did he expect from me? How would we both deal with whatever it was? Many other similar thoughts ran through my mind. The one constant was, yesterday would not be a one-time treat. I decided to fix myself up a bit and then invite him over. We needed to talk, to come to some sort of, at least preliminary, understanding. After putting my hair in a ponytail and dabbing on a bit of organza by Givenchy, I called Jeff. He answered on the first ring. Hey. Great to hear from you. Honestly, I was wondering if I would, hoping I would. How are you? His words came tumbling out. I laughed to myself, I guess I did have an effect on him. I am really good. I was thinking it might be nice if you were to come over and we could chat a bit. We did not have much time to talk yesterday. Yeah, that would be great. You know I always love talking with you. Well I have some fresh coffee on, so why don't you come over anytime you feel like it? Greg is gone and will be gone for a couple of days. Okay. Well now is good for me, if it is good for you. Sure, I am just sitting here, somewhat bored, watching the news. Take your time, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, see you soon. Bye. J. As soon as I heard her voice, my heart kicked into high gear. The calm I had managed to achieve had quickly given way to nervous excitement. I parsed her words. She could not have really meant chat, or at least not just chat, not after yesterday. She was so calm, just like always. I never felt like this around the women I knew at the university, not even the married ones. Calm down, Jeffrey, just calm down. Everything is going to work out fine. Or so I told myself. After a few deep breaths I managed to again calm myself. I put on a clean pair of black jeans and a red university polo shirt, nothing else except a new pair of Nikes. A few more deep breaths and I strolled across the street. Softly knocking on the door produced nothing. I knocked again, nothing. Finally I held the doorbell down. She finally answered the door, standing aside. Good to see you. Come on in. I do not know what I was expecting, but there she was, looking like Alex Morgan, ready for the finals to start. Hey Jeff, good to see you. You left me a little used up yesterday, but I am totally recovered. Let's have some coffee. I turned to her as she was about to turn and walk, probably to the kitchen. I held her arms and pulled her to me. She did not resist. I held her tight and she did the same with me. I was amazed yesterday and now I am totally blown away. God, you are so beautiful, so incredibly sexy and captivating. Pushing me back, she said, I am more than a little bit enchanted and fascinated by you also. Let's close the door and go sit down. Oh God, right, I said, slamming the door. I knew I was being a bit coy with him at the door. Dressed like I was, I suppose I was lucky he did not scoop me up right there. But I was counting on him being at least a bit nervous. It was sort of naughty of me to be so cavalier with him. We did make it to the kitchen and I did get him a cup of coffee. I am not sure he drank any. Jeffrey, I believe we have progressed to a new level in our relationship, our private relationship. To be totally blunt, I want you as my lover for as long as you want. God, Kristen, that's all I have dreamed about. Literally for years. From the first time I met you, compounded by the first time I saw you doing yoga, you cracked those blinds on purpose, didn't you? Well. Maybe. I knew it. And it took me all these years to get to here. It took me a long time too. Greg is not what he once was and our marriage is not what it once was. Honestly, and probably hopefully, I wished for yesterday. Let's leave Greg out of this for now and just enjoy what time we have together. I want you as my lover, for the times we can share together. I want the same. I have June, July and part of August. Of course I have to go to some training camps. And we have to work around Greg and the neighbors. I do not need anyone seeing us together too much. As much as I would love it, you cannot run across the street every morning. But we will work that out. Right now, I think the appropriate place for us is my R00M. With that we both stood and almost ran for the R00M. I was right, she had been toying with my mind by leaving those blinds cracked. It was a shot in the dark for her, but it was obvious she enjoyed it. I wondered how daring she really was out in public. I watched her scoot for the bedroom 00M. She ran like a gazelle, leaving an easy, deceptively fast impression. Can you guess what happens next? My stomach was grumbling, I was hungry. I had rushed over with no breakfast, and now my stomach needed attention. I mentioned it to her and she punched me lightly. Why didn't you say something before, silly? Let's go see what we can find. She jumped up and began to head for the kitchen. Off they came and on to the kitchen, where she made fresh coffee and produced some really good granola and milk. Just what a growing guy needed, short of steak and eggs. As we ate, she told me the story of her and Greg, pretty much from their meeting to the waning and disintegration of their love life, including her platonic to our now relationship. I had a much better picture of why this was happening between us. I did not say much. Mostly just nodded my head at appropriate times. So now that you know all that, do you still think I am your perfect woman, I believe is what you said, or just some girl cheating on her husband? Tears were beginning to form in her eyes. I pushed back from the table and held out my arms to her. Come over here. She did, putting her arms around me, burying her head on my shoulder, beginning to cry. I lifted her head so I could look in her eyes. Your story has just made me think even better of you. I know men's and women's emotions are different, but you have no kids and you make more money than him. I am amazed you have stayed as long as you have. And besides staying and trying to still be a good wife, you have stayed true to him, until now of course, I said with a bit of a chuckle. She pinched my arm but I saw a glimmer of a smile flash across her face. You should be carrying no guilt and shedding no tears over this. It is a predicament not of your making. In fact you have gone over and above what I think your obligations were. Oh Jeff, you are so mature beyond your years. I always knew there were good reasons I admired you and treasured our relationship, such as it was. You have no idea how much your words mean to me. I know everything you said is right. People get complacent, they deal with it, they compartmentalize things. Conditions are going to change for Greg and I, enough time has passed for circumstances to get better. My life is going to go on. Suddenly a smile began to slowly appear. Listen mister, I am sitting here, pouring out my life's troubles and you are getting hard, if I am not mistaken. I was getting hard. I am a problem solver, problem solved, on to the next thing. I don't know what possessed me to spill out my life's burden at that moment, but I knew I would have to sometime soon, it just felt right. When I was done, it was like a huge weight had been lifted off me, just in the telling. Then I could not believe how understanding and insightful Jeff was. His few sentences really put it all in perspective for me. My path ahead was clear now. I was so happy he did not think me a bad girl, the mental label I had sometimes put on myself, just for thinking of cheating, let alone doing it. Finally I had to chase him off so I could get some work done, and buy some steaks and other supplies for dinner. Wondering what the night might hold, I walked to my office.